Social reformers, women, caste, and reforms. Raja Rammohan Roy is known as the maker of modern India. He was the founder of the Brahmo Samaj, one of the first Indian socio-religious reform movements. He advocated the study of English, science, Western medicine and technology, and played a prominent role in abolishing Sati Pratha. Born in May 1772 in a village called Radhanagar in the district of Hooghly in Bengal, by the age of 15, Raja Rammohan Roy had learnt Bangla, Persian, Arabic and Sanskrit. Rammohan was against idol worship and orthodox Hindu rituals. He stood firmly against all sorts of social bigotry, conservatism and superstitions and echoed his voice against the sati system, polygamy, caste rigidity, child marriage and the right for women to hold property. He was greatly moved by his sister-in-law's death, who became sati and thus diligently campaigned for the abolishing of Sati Pratha. He tried to show in his writings that widow burning had no sanction in the ancient texts. In 1814, he formed the Atmiya Sabha, through which he tried to initiate social and religious reforms in society. He also supported education, particularly education of women. In 1822, he founded a school based on English education and set up the Hindu College at Calcutta in 1822. In 1828, Raja Rammohan Roy founded the Brahmo Samaj. Through the Brahmo Samaj, he wanted to expose the religious hypocrisies and check the growing influence of Christianity on the Hindu society. Raja Rammohan Roy's efforts bore fruit when in 1829 the sati system was abolished. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, born in September of 1820 in the Paschim Midnapur district of West Bengal, Ishwar Chandra throughout his life worked tirelessly for the betterment of women's status in the society and especially for the education of girls, for the removal of social injustice, upliftment of women, allowing widow remarriage, and preaching the ills of polygamy. Along with other reformers such as Ram Gopal Ghosh, Madan Mohan Tarkalankar and others, he founded the school for girls. When these schools opened in the early 19th century, people were wary of them and thought that by sending their daughters to this school, they would not be available for domestic duties. Many people were also not comfortable sending their daughters out to public places, and hence most educated women were taught at home by their liberal fathers or husbands. Vidyasagar believed that despite caste or gender, everyone had the right to receive education. Thus, he opened up the premises of the Sanskrit College to the lower caste people. He was especially vocal about the cause of widow remarriage because young widows were treated very badly after the demise of their husbands. Most of them were ill-treated, subjected to a lot of cruelty and hard labor, and not given proper food by the family. Widows were not allowed to leave the house and were prohibited from meeting strangers. Most of these young widows would flee from their homes and take up prostitution to support themselves. In 1853, it was believed that Kolkata had around 12,000 prostitutes. The efforts of these reformers paved way. Many women reformers surfaced on the scene of Indian society by 1880s. They were either lawyers, doctors or writers. Among them were the social reformers like Mumtaz Ali, who reinterpreted verses from the Quran to argue for women's education. The first Urdu novels began to be written from the late 19th century. From the early 20th century, Muslim women like the Begums of Bhopal, Begum Rokeya, played a prominent role in promoting education among women. Pandita Ramabai. Another prominent woman reformist was Pandita Ramabai, who in 1889 opened the Sharda Sadan or Home for Learning in Mumbai. She designed this institution for providing security and education for Hindu women who were widowed at a young age. With this, Pandita Ramabai launched her mission to improve the lives and opportunities of Indian women. She also founded the Arya Mahila Samaj, a society of high caste Hindu women working for the education of girls and against child marriage. She also published her first book, Morals for Women, or in the original Marathi, Stri Dharma Niti, which speaks about women's rights. This transformation of Indian women and their active participation in the society worried the conservatives. They felt that women were adopting Western ways and that this would corrupt their culture and erode family values. However, by early 20s, more women started actively working for women reforms. They wrote books, edited magazines, founded schools and training centers, and set up women's associations. They formed political pressure groups to push through laws for female suffrage and better health care and education for women. They were backed by the nationalists like Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, who promised that there would be full suffrage for all men and women after independence. One of the most significant impacts of these reform movements was that in 1929, the Child Marriage Restraint Act was passed. According to the Act, no man below the age of 18 and woman below the age of 16 could marry. Subsequently, these limits were raised to 21 for men and 18 for women. Caste and social reforms. Most of these reformists were also against caste system and actively crusaded to abolish it. The Prarthana Samaj adhered to the tradition of bhakti that believed in spiritual equality of all castes. In Bombay, the Paramahams Mandali was founded in 1840 to work for the abolition of caste. Christian missionaries in the early 19th century also began setting up schools for tribal groups and low caste children. Gradually, by the second half of the 19th century, people from within the non-Brahmin caste began organizing movements against caste discrimination and demanded social equality and justice. The Satnami movement in central India, founded by a leader named Ghasidas, who came from a lower caste, worked among the leather workers and organized the movement to improve their social status. In eastern Bengal, Haridas Thakur's Matua sect worked among low caste Chandala cultivators. Haridas questioned the Brahminical texts that supported the caste system. Mahatma Jyotirao Govindrao Phule. Jyotirao Phule and his wife Savitribai Phule were pioneers of women's education in India. His work extended to many fields including education, agriculture, caste system, women, and widow upliftment and removal of untouchability. He is most known for his efforts to educate women and the lower castes as well as the masses. He, after educating his wife, opened the first school for girls in India in August 1848. In September 1873, Jyotirao along with his followers formed the Satya Shodhak Samaj, a society of seekers of truth with the main objective of liberating the Bahujans, Shudras and Atishudras and protecting them from exploitation and atrocities. For his fight to attain equal rights for peasants and the lower caste and his contributions to the field of education, he is regarded as one of the most important figures of the social reform movement in Maharashtra. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. B.R. Ambedkar was an Indian jurist, politician and social reformer who inspired the Dalit Buddhist movement and campaigned against social discrimination in India, striving for equal rights for the Dalit men and women. He was born into a poor, low Mahar caste. Although he was able to attend school, Ambedkar and the other untouchable children were segregated and given little attention or assistance by the teachers. They were not even allowed to sit inside the class. Ambedkar, after completing his law degree, tried to uplift the untouchables in order to educate them. His first organized attempt to achieve this was the Bahishkrit Hitakarani Sabha, which was intended to promote education and socio-economic improvement as well as the welfare of the depressed classes. For the protection of the Dalit rights, he started many periodicals like the Muknayak, Bahishkrit Bharat and the Equality Janta. In 1930, Ambedkar launched the Kalaram Temple movement. This was a non-violent movement for which he was preparing for 3 months. About 15,000 volunteers assembled at the Kalaram Temple Satyagraha, making one of the greatest processions of Nashik. This movement was for human dignity and self-respect. Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy. Periyar belonged to a middle-class family. His philosophy was that all men and women should live with dignity and have equal opportunities to develop their physical, mental, and moral faculties. To achieve this, he wanted to put an end to all kinds of unjust discriminations and to promote social justice and a rational outlook. To put his principle into practice, Periyar associated himself with the Madras Presidency Association, that is the MPA, in 1917. The association advocated communal representation and demanded reservation for the non-Brahmins and minority communities for the removing the injustices. When Mahatma Gandhi took the lead in the Indian National Congress, Periyar joined the organization in 1919. In 1922, Periyar moved a resolution in the Tamil Nadu Congress Committee. This resolution required people of all castes to be allowed to enter and worship in all the temples as a measure to end birth-based discrimination. Citing the authority of the Vedas and other Hindu scriptures, the Brahmin members of the committee opposed the resolution and stalled its passage. This provoked Periyar to declare that he would burn the Manu Dharma Shastra, the Ramayana, etc. to show his disapproval to accept such scriptures to govern the social, religious and cultural aspects of the people. Periyar's vigorous and spirited role in the Vaikom Satyagraha in 1924 contributed in no mean measure for the triumph of that first historic social struggle in the history of modern India. This paved the way for the untouchables to use public roads without any inhibition and for other prospective egalitarian social measures. The self-respect movement founded in 1925 carried on a vigorous and ceaseless propaganda against ridiculous and harmful superstitions, traditions, customs and habits. He wanted to dispel the ignorance of the people and make them enlightened. Self-respecters performed marriages without Brahmin priests and without religious rites. They insisted on equality between men and women in all walks of life. They encouraged intercaste and widow remarriages. Periyar propagated the need for birth control even from late 1920s. He gathered support for lawful abolition of Devdasi, that is temple prostitution system, and the practice of child marriage. It was mainly due to his consistent and energetic propaganda that the policy of reservations and job opportunities in government administration was put into practice in the then Madras province, which included Tamil Nadu, in 1928.